Hello subscribers, how are you? This today is something that I'm very happy to show you. I'm very proud of it and I love it dearly. It's simply a barbecue, but it is without doubt the nicest lamb barbecue you will have ever eaten. I can assure you, you will agree with me in a very short period of time. Now, what we start with here is the lamb 4/4 chop, as I mentioned to you before, but it is very important that when you order the lamb 4/4 chop, you go to your butcher, and I've very seldom heard a butcher not comply, and ask for it to be roughly about as thick as your pinky. The reason for this is to cook it optimally. I mean, you don't need to let the lamb sit, and you eat it off the barbecue, nice and fresh, and there's a little window of opportunity when you're eating this, probably about 1 minute after you've taken it off the grill to about 8 minutes after you've taken it off the grill, where it is tasting at its premium. Because it's thin, it will dry out, so you really need to set the barbecue and make sure the table's set, everybody's seated, and they're anxiously awaiting the lamb. They'll be smelling it, and believe me, you won't let anybody down. I never have. Okay, so we get the lamb 4/4 chops and we marinate them with various spices. These spices I personally have refined over many years, and they were all derived primarily from the spices that go into the famous Adana Kebab. It's a kebab in Turkey. It's a kebab basically made of mince, but it's a mixture of two minces, a lamb and a beef mince. I should inform you that I have thoroughly sterilized the sinks because I need a large vessel in which to mix in, and I love using a sink because it's easy to clean. So just throw some boiling water in it, 20 seconds, and all germs will be dead and you have nothing to worry about. And it's particularly important if you're going to do salads and use the sink as a vessel to mix salads, which sometimes you have to if you're catering for 10, 12 people. Okay, the secret ingredients are, and if you have trouble remembering them, just think of them as 4 C's. We have cinnamon, a very small dose because it is overwhelming. We have ground cumin. We can use the ground stuff here because cumin does retain its aroma very well as a grounded spice. We've also got coriander, but this we have to always freshly grind. It is very aromatic, but I think the oils in it must be volatile because the aroma doesn't last that long. So you really want to grind the coriander up. Okay, the most important ingredient with almost every lamb dish you will see me cooking is red paprika. It's a match made in heaven, and I very seldom use lamb without red paprika, unless I'm doing an Asian dish. There's about 12 chops there, so we're putting about 3-4 tablespoons of red paprika. The coriander is about 1.5 tablespoons, but trial and error will show you the way. But trust me, if you memorize this recipe, you will serve it over and over again to the adulation of all your friends and family. Probably a tablespoon of this. Cinnamon, maybe a teaspoon. This probably gives it a slightly Moroccan touch, but a lot of the Middle Easterns use cinnamon in their desserts and sweet dishes, and so that flavor becomes accustomed with that, so you just want to have it subtly in the background. This cayenne is important to most of us from the Middle East because we like our chili, but if you don't like the heat of the chili, you can go for a milder cayenne or just leave it out altogether. So I'm putting about a teaspoon of cayenne as well. Now for the salt, and as I consistently say, you add about 3 to 5 times the amount normally prescribed in other cooking shows. And on the barbecue it just drips off anyway, so we can be liberal with spices and salt. All the ingredients are there, paprika, and now we just mix it up nice and thoroughly. This is good. I mean, you could basically just marinate it and cook it straight away. I like to leave it for at least half an hour to 2 hours before my guests arrive and before I put it on the plate. But yeah, by all means, you can cook it immediately. Most restaurants do it pretty much immediately as well. It should achieve a nice deep red, as you can see it there. That's from the paprika, but this will be a very, very special barbecue. Now we'll just throw that into a vessel and let it sit for half an hour to 2 hours, and we'll get cracking with what we generally like to use as an entree for our barbecue. It's good, it mixes the flavors up. We're going to do some chicken wings. Over the years, having barbecues with my family so frequently, we've realized that the middle part of the wing becomes the most popular part, and in many chicken poultry shops you can just buy middle wings, which is great because it has a high degree of oil and fat on it, and it becomes nice and easily crispy. For the wings, we don't really need to employ too many ingredients. What I like to do is add a little bit of vinegar. That tends to make it crispy easier on the barbecue. It kind of sucks all the water out of the skin. Some turmeric. This, as well as flavor, it improves the color substantially. Be careful you don't get it on your top because it's really hard to get out. A nice liberal dose of salt. And this again, let it sit for about half an hour to 2 hours. Another really nice ingredient to add with the chicken wings, especially if you're going to let it sit for 2 hours, is onions. So I'm going to chop some onions and throw it in there, and you'll be very surprised, and I assure you, you'll get adulation galore. Okay, so we've added the spices. Now I'm just going to add some chopped onions. For this, we really want to chop it nice and thinly because we want to infuse the flavor into it while it sits and marinates. So we've chopped the onions nice and thinly. And I can't stress how important it is to get these little vessels, because whenever you cook, you should prepare as much as possible before you actually get into it. And with these things, I used to think they were just good for cooking shows, but really they improve the timing of everything, and they make cooking much more of a joy knowing that it's all ready. Okay, so we're just going to mix the onions through. So the turmeric in here, if you remember, some vinegar. You can use lemon juice, it's just as good, and slightly different in flavor of course, but the acid is doing the same job, and that is basically to dry the skin out so we can get a crispy skin. And we just added the onions, so we'll let that sit for about 1.5 hours ideally. So we've got our meat ready. Next on the agenda is some rice and jajik, or as you know more often in Melbourne, tzatziki, which is a garlic, cucumber and yogurt dish, which goes very well with this Middle Eastern type of barbecue, Middle Eastern Greek. As I always mention to you, cleaning whenever you can will also make cooking a joy. I've started with the chicken wings because they quite simply take a little longer to cook. So what we'll do is we'll get them nicely browned, and then we'll place them on the side and let them cook through while we cook the lamb, which obviously doesn't take much time. Because remember, I asked for the lamb to be cut in very small, in thicknesses of approximately your pinky. So we've got the chicken wings in a nice color. I've had the lid on just so that they can cook through a little bit more. They'll be on the outside and getting crispy. So to start with, we're having a nice red breast while we cook the barbecue. Now these wings are looking very good. They're gaining a wonderful color, as you can no doubt see. And very soon we'll apply the lamb to the grill. And it's always very important to be mindful of the hottest areas on the grill, which is obviously usually the middle. And sometimes you turn them over and you move them around in accordance with your knowledge of that, and that way keeping everything evenly cooked. So these ones that have browned nicely, I'll put them on the outside as I turn them around, and the ones that haven't browned obviously are turned over towards the center. Okay, now we've got the chicken wings crisping on the outside. They've been browned, and we're just going to let them slowly crisp up and slowly cook through as the lamb on the inside cooks. Now the charcoals have cooled down a little bit, as is normal with a charcoal barbecue, and so you need to be able to balance that. I mean, with a gas barbecue or on a stove or a grill, the temperature is much more constant, so it's a different equation. And we're almost done here. As you can see, the chicken wings are getting nice and crispy, and they're on the outside where it's not so hot, and the lamb is almost cooked, and we're almost ready to go. Everything is nicely cooked and the guests are waiting, so it's adieu from me.